So that's the second part of our ADFAB framework. We need to talk about data. Now, the problem though is, and I've taught so many people how to use Google Ads over the years, that they open up the interface and it looks like a bus timetable from 1952, and it's just full of numbers and they don't know where to start. This is the one I was talking about before with 137,000 ad groups there. Where do I start? I got 137,000 things I need to do. Well, obviously you don't. Some of this is more important than others. This you've probably seen before. There's this hierarchy that starts with data, goes to information, then insight. There's actually a couple of levels above, which is knowledge and wisdom. But we want to go from data at least to insight. A whole bunch of data, like we just saw, isn't in and of itself particularly useful. The first thing we need to do is turn that into better information so that we can have insights about that. And the best way to do that is to turn that data into a picture. Now, what some of us will do, and I know I do this all the time, is when I look at that mass of data, that bus timetable from the 1950s, I'm turning that into a picture in my head. Now, the smart people at Google have obviously figured this out, and you will have seen on the overview page more and more of these cards popping up over time where they're trying to summarize all of that data and make it useful. Something like 70% of our brains are wired or used or whatever for visual pattern recognition. That's what we are very, very good at, because that's how we've evolved. A million years ago, we needed to know instantly, was that a stick or a snake on the ground in front of us? And we had to know straight away. The problem is with that we tend to make very quick decisions sometimes without much thought, because that's how we've been evolved to be. And I'm going to give you a solution for that when we get to the next section. So you're going to see these pictures, these images. This is turning data into information. Now, you can use Google's own stuff for that. We rely on Data Studio a lot for this. And building our own dashboards and reports, it could be in Data Studio, it could be in our own tool that we use, or a third-party tool that we use. You can use the reports inside of Google Ads. If you go into the report section, you've probably found by now the dashboard section, so you can build your own dashboards with various KPIs inside of Google Ads. You don't have to use a tool like Data Studio. Optimizer, you've heard me talk about often. I love Optimizer. I'll give you one big insight that I had maybe a year or two ago, and that is I'm always looking for context. And the first thing, when I open a new account, the first thing I'm looking at is really what's the investment versus the outcome. Now, you can do this at a number of levels, right? You can start to segment your data, because where you get the most insights from, generally speaking, or certainly I do, is when I start to compare similar segments. So, for example, I might look at a new account and say, just at a high level, again, starting with campaign types, like we talked about before, where's my investment going? I've got 41 grand going into search, 44 grand going into shopping, and 9 grand going into video. These are real numbers from a real account that I audited a while back. And look, if I'm doing this more automatically and pulling data and building this automatically, I might get a little bit more funky with this. I would tend to break search into brand and non-brand. Then I've got shopping, and I might want to know if that's smart shopping or a range of shopping campaigns, or possibly even a range of smart shopping campaigns. Display, I'd break into remarketing and then cold GDN. And then video, I might also break into cold versus remarketing. So I've got a few buckets. It's not generally this simple, but this makes for a better picture. And this was actually the state of this particular account. But I'll always, certainly on the search side, dig into search and go, what proportion of this is brand and what's non-brand? So you might split that up into two. Then I'm going to look at what are the outcomes. So that's my investment. What are my outcomes? And this might be the last week, the last 30 days, whatever it is, but I'm going to generally use recent data because that's going to be more relevant. So in this particular case, by this point, I've looked at the conversions tab. I understand what a conversion is. That's the very, very first thing I do. But once I know that, okay, yep, we're measuring something sensible, then how many things did we get for our investment? In this case, about 3,000 sales for the 41 grand, 800 sales in shopping for the 44 grand, 200 for the 9 grand over there. Well, okay, that starts to help, because especially once I plot it out and I'm kind of doing this in my head, I'm saying I've got about, what, 4,300 sales. Roughly, how do they break down? I've been told by my team I'm weird, that I do this in my head and I calculate percentages fairly quickly in my head. I didn't realize I was weird. But let's put some percentages on this, because again, that starts to add color to this. It starts to add some context. And now I can immediately see I've got 44% of my investment going into search, but it generates 76% of my outcomes. That appears like that's working particularly well. Shopping, on the other hand, not so good. Now, to add to that, I could then add even more context by putting something like a CPA. Maybe that's a ROAS, but in this case, I'm going to use CPA. And so I can immediately see 13, 55, 40. But here's the thing, right? If we started with that bottom line, if I said I've got a CPA of 13 from search and a CPA of 55 from shopping, what would you say? Would you immediately say, oh, you got to dump shopping? You just don't know, because what if that shopping 55 CPA was 2 sales for 110 bucks? Well, then you go, well, that's irrelevant, assuming that you're spending a bit of money on search, or the other way around. It could well be that you're spending 99% of your money on shopping and getting a CPA of 55, and that may be very profitable for the business. Without even more context and digging into what's the break-even point, we actually don't know. For this particular client, I believe break-even was around 100. So 55 is fine, right? If we were spending $26 a year and getting 2 conversions at 13 bucks, yes, the 13 looks lovely, but it's meaningless, because in the scheme of things, it's just completely irrelevant. We might dig into that and then ask why, which is going to be your favorite question with the ADFAB framework. Why are we only spending 26 bucks a year? Which keywords did you choose? What's the budget? Why is this so limited? It looks like it's working well. Oh, it's this 8-word exact match keyword that nobody ever searches for that converts really well and nothing else converted. That's why you're down to spending 26 bucks a year. So first we got to get some context. Now, you don't have to do this in your head. You might use a tool, again, like Data Studio, or build your own custom reports to do this, but this is where I always start. I want to know what the conversion is, and then I want to get some context, starting at a high level, campaign types. Then I might drill in. So once I look to this, I might then drill into search and say, okay, how am I spending that 41,000? What's the 80-20 of that? Are there 2 or 3 campaigns that are doing all the hard work, that are generating the vast majority of those sales? So I can dig into that. Then I might dig into that campaign and say, same question again, what are my top ad groups? Dig into that. What are my top keywords? How are my messages different for those ad groups versus the ones that aren't converting? Digging into shopping, which brands are selling, which products are selling, which of my many shopping campaigns are the ones that are working? Or I might do this whole thing, instead of search, shopping, video, what if this was desktop, mobile, and tablet? And again, I start to see at a broad level, and then I can start to drill in. I hope this is making sense for you. That's meant to say Data Studio, not Data Center. Clearly I was in a rush throwing these slides together for you this morning. I just wanted to get this done before I fly to the States, and I want to get this into your hands. So we will segment our reports. The worst thing you can do is lump everything together, because averages lie. I won't do the bad statistician joke here. But by segmenting this out, talking about cold traffic compared to remarketing, and then even splitting out cold into GDN, YouTube, and then splitting out YouTube into our different types of ads for this particular client, that made sense. That may not make sense for you. The key, though, is to segment. And we've talked about a number of different ways to do that. So we've got some pictures. What are we looking for in pictures? The most obvious thing you're going to look for is a trend. Are we trending flat, up, or down? This is a screen grab from the front page of Optimizer. So there's a dashboard in Optimizer. You can have all your clients listed there. You can star the ones that are important to you and only see the starred ones. Maybe if you have different members of your team working on different accounts, they can see, instead of everything in the business, they can see just the accounts that matter to them. And then this will give you a whole bunch of contextual information at a glance. You could just hover over, in this case, what was that? The current spend of this particular client over the last 4 weeks. I can see 153 grand. I think maybe month to date is 164, or maybe that's last 30 days, not entirely sure. You can see how that compares to budget, but importantly, I can see the trend of that, because trends tell us so much. I think Mercer said it the other day, the truth is in the trend. The other thing I'm looking for are alerts, anomalies. I want to know when something abnormal happens. And again, two types of alert, just like we talked about before, structural and performance-based. So you might want to see where have I had big impression drop? And I want to see that at a campaign level, right? Let's say you've got 30 campaigns running. If one of those drops to 0, someone's added the wrong negative keyword, or someone's messed up the ad schedule and they've made it PM instead of AM, or something weird has gone on. At an account level, you're not going to see much of a difference. That line is barely going to move. But one of your 30 campaigns has just dropped to 0. I want to know about that. The worst thing you can possibly do is to discover that, and I've done this many, many years ago, but discover that when you're on the call with the client 3 weeks later at the beginning of the next month, and then you, oh, look, that's, I wonder, oh shit, that's not a good time to discover that that one campaign has messed up. Just other examples here, maybe CPA, or another important metric to you is up or down by a large percentage, 30%, 20%, 50%, again, whatever makes sense to you. Maybe I want to know that conversions have dropped to 0. Again, not all conversions, but individual conversion actions, because again, that might be a dev messing up some code. And again, that trend line of overall conversions hasn't changed, but that individual conversion might have dropped to 0 because of a mistake, usually. I want to know about that straight away. Or new words, you'll see one of the cards on the overview screen. Google are starting to give this information to us. We've used ngram scripts for years to pull apart a search query report and present us with the individual words and the performance of those individual words, so that we can spot new trends, potential new keywords, and obviously potential new negative keywords. But resources are limited, right? Time is limited. We don't have time to do everything that we know we should do. We've got to 80-20 that. We've got to drill down and go, look, we can't look at 137,000 ad groups. We can only look at a few of them. Typically then, I'm going to look at the top 5%. Again, that could be top 1%, 10%, maybe even 20%. And I'm going to sort and filter that a few different ways. I'm going to look at that probably first by cost, follow the money first. So again, let's just go back to big picture and talk about campaigns. I've got an account with 120 campaigns in, sort that by cost, and I can immediately see, look, those 4 campaigns generate, or spend 50+% of my investment and generate 80% of my conversions. That's where all my time and energy is going. I think that's pretty obvious, but it's worth the reminder that there is always an 80-20 there. Doesn't matter which thing you're looking at inside of Google Ads, be that campaigns or ad groups or ads or keywords or extensions or products, there's always going to be an 80-20. And I'll also do that a few different ways. So I won't just do it by cost. I'll sort by impression. I'll sort by, probably not click, but sometimes I'll sort by outcomes, by conversions, or by ROAS, and go have a look at that. I might sort by CPA, just to see if there are crazy anomalies at the top. I might sort by CPC if I'm looking at display placements, or you got some broad match keywords, something that's attracting a wide range of traffic. I'll sort by CPC, and I might find that some of my placements are costing me $3 a click, even though the average is 48 cents. So I want to know that. It's all about finding those outliers and seeing those trends over time.